everything out and I made it so that my life, it wasn't the be all and end all of my life. It was just something that, hey, this is for me. And when I did retest, it made sense. And I was way more relaxed. I found it was fun actually being on the exam. And the expectation wasn't that my life's going to end if I don't pass this. It's like, again, this is part of the journey. And that made a huge difference for my mindset. So if there is anyone actually listening to me verbalize this, it does work, I promise you.
Well, and the other thing is I try to say it on most of the courses or exams I do, and sometimes you get kind of the eye roll, but the reality is it is only snowboarding, right? And like you say, there's a lot of other lessons that you learn as an adult or as a young person that are way more costly. And at the end of the day, what are we doing? Right? We're sliding down that side of the hill.
It's only snowboarding. That's all I had going over in my head when you three were assessing me at my level 3. I just kept it going. It's only snowboarding. It's only snowboarding. But it is, it's snowboarding. It's supposed to be fun, but it's supposed to be, as you move up the levels, it's got to be challenging. You don't just give these away. Do you know what I mean? You have got to earn your place to be sat here where we're sat now, So I think having it being challenging, but it's an achievable goal. But it is a process, and you say that, and they're always achievable. And as we go up the levels, obviously it's going to get harder. But if you're driven as a person, you want to be part of this, you'll get there if you focus and do it. But you just can't put yourself too much pressure on yourself. Yeah. Remember, it's fun.
Take the time to acquire the skills. It's a odd activity because it's well, Mellen said it before. It's equal parts theory, science, and art, right? Yeah. And teaching and snowboard, riding or teaching. And if you were to pursue a degree, master's degree, or a PhD, you kind of tick the boxes for long enough, and eventually you'll get it. Yeah. But with what we do, it's like there's a certain element of there's a certain kind of aspect that can't be summed up in a textbook or an app or by reviewing a bullet point list, right? And some of those skills take longer to acquire, and you just have to be okay with just putting in your time. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And really, there's like many areas where you can acquire those skills.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I talk a lot too is that with people that are chasing the higher level certifications, it's actually teaching at the very lowest levels that are going to generate you the skills. Yeah. Like you learn so much teaching beginners, and they teach and they give back so much joy. It's a great way to not lose the joy is to go and watch people fall in love with snowboarding for the first time again. Right? And then all of a sudden your burnout evaporates, you put your hand over your heart, you can see the little hearts twinkling in your eyes absolutely. Right there, right? So
but that reward feeling as well, like, that's one of the greatest things about this, the reward that you feel when you've given your gift to somebody else, and what you've been training at, like that's amazing. You can't bottle or buy that feeling,
There's the art.
Yeah. I think unfortunately though, so often we see that the process, if it gets rushed or if you sort of feel this pressure to get to the next stage, that broad part of at the bottom of the pyramid gets skipped a little bit. And over the years, I've often been asked from people like, what can I do to speed up my level 3 process or speed up my level 4 process? And my stock standard answer now is always spend more time teaching beginners because I think of myself at COP in Calgary, and I taught thousands of hours of beginners on the rope tow and on the beginner hill. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of people that really important stage gets missed or skipped nowadays, where it's like I just want to get to the end result, and it's tough to do it that way because you miss out on a lot of learning.
Definitely, I feel like because I teach at the Domes, and like it is basically purely mainly beginner lessons. We do have improver lessons, but it's always kind of that's the bulk of what kind of gets the money in. Yeah. And it is quite good to really show the experience of that. I mean, one thing I really taken away from when teaching beginners just in day out was just the adaptability. So really trying to focus on not just necessarily kind of giving the presentation to like different people, but like you've got this group of like 6 or 8 people, and they've all got their own different things that they need to kind of work on. Yeah, like some are better at the toe edge, some are better at the heel edge. Some are like opening too much, and you got to really kind of, get a load of these stuff, and you can't just do one specific thing for one specific group. It's always been like, okay, now I've got to do this for this guy, and maybe go to do this for this person, and really kind of focusing on those little tweaks. Really,
It's a private lesson for everyone.
Yeah.
yeah, private
It's
lesson.
maybe not private. It's an individualized lesson
Yeah.
for each student, and that's cool. It makes you think on the fly.
Yeah.
It shows that you have a wealth of knowledge, and even in the maybe slightly different tactics, there's a different explanation. There's even different terminology, body language, energy levels, depending on the client on the day, right? It's awesome. It makes you adapt.
So
Yeah, and having that awareness to pick those, like see everybody's differences, and then tailor your lesson to each person, but all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Like that's a skill as well, and something like if you're not, and that's applicable if you're managing an office. Every character in that office is going to be different, and that's where these skills adapt once again to go into real world.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's human management, right? Like dealing with people and their different needs.
And sometimes the people aren't feeling the stoke.
Yep.
And so you've got to try and find out
Oh,
why
man,
and bring that out of them.
Yeah.
And so you're almost doing psychiatry at the same time, And
I
you're
think we call that human resources.
I'm not saying everyone's a psycho. But there's a few out there.
But it's managing a team, like all of those things. Like there's so much that's so applicable from life lessons on the bunny slope, right?
Yeah, for sure.
How do you feel like, doing these beginner lessons and translating into more kind of improver sessions where you kind of expanding more on the mountain? How do you guys feel either that differs or it's similar? Like what have you guys kind of found it out through those kind of experiences?
So I was running sessions for some people or some candidates that are training for their level 4 the other day. And we were talking about one of the parts of level 4 is that you have an overriding skill, but that you might also have a secondary sub-skill that really comes in. And they were asking me how to practice this. And I was like, go out, teach beginners, and you'll have a skill focus for the day. And you'll pick an individual sub-skill for each of them, just like the way you were describing what you're doing. We've got a framework for that. We know what you're up to. You've got a single skill focus, and you're picking out a sub-skill and individualizing the lesson. So, you can translate that. That is exactly the same skill. And it's so much easier to practice with beginner lessons because, like you say, there are so many more of them.
Yeah.
And you have a larger group that you have to manage and practice. So that, brand new beginner second day lesson, you learn all the same skills. It's the same framework. You're just, doing it a little bit faster on slightly steeper runs. But it's the same framework. And that's the cool part about CASI. So we've got this framework that you can take from the highest level and you can apply your expert level teaching at any level, any terrain, any level.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think the best instructors, just from a personal level, will teach a beginner the same way they'll teach a more advanced rider, just in terms of the atmosphere and the environment that they create. So teaching a beginner lesson it might happen a little slower and it might happen in a little different spot on the mountain, but it's no less skilled, right? And I think it's really important that an instructor can convey that to the client as well, that this isn't, you're not a lesser person because you're in a beginner lesson and I'd rather be teaching a high-end student. I think the best instructors will be able to create the same kind of atmosphere in the lesson, no matter who they're teaching. And that's it's a skill of a great instructor.
So, adapting, isn't it? Adapting to every scenario.
Mm-hmm.
What I've started doing is teaching sort of tactics that we use on the level 1, so when people are learning to be instructors, sort of bringing them out on a higher level training session and showing how it can work at the higher level. I mean, fundamentals are fundamentals, okay? And it's just speed, terrain, and specificity of where you're actually using this. Same stuff works. The wheel works pretty well, it rolls.
Yeah.
If you don't, if it was square, it wouldn't be working, so why reinvent it?
Good point.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's a good point, isn't it? If it's right at that beginner stage, you're learning them how to get on an edge, we're still doing that when we come a high level, just a bit faster on steeper stuff. You're absolutely right.
There's no magic change when you get up to the higher levels. It's just, like you say, a little more refined, a little faster, a little steeper.
Do you feel like some people think those higher levels there's some sort of magical source? Yeah. They
Yeah.
add on, and it's just like you think this secret book that like trainers have that it's just and it's not necessarily that, and you've got to kind of break that down.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a common feeling of people maybe new to the process, especially at the higher levels. Say the CASI level 4, for example, the process of training for that, and there's often a thought that we're looking for something completely different that we've never seen at any other level. But it really, all it is that as you progress through the levels, your skills become more polished and more refined. And so by that last level, hopefully all of those basics that you did and learned about at your level 1, you just do them with much more proficiency at the level 4. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's hard for people to kind of accept, right? Because it's like, well, there must be something different. You don't do the same stuff.
What's the next? What's the 6 skills? Like same skills, same competencies. You're like really good at it now.
Exactly. Do the basics better than anybody else.
Yeah.
That's a great saying. Do the basics better than anyone else.
Looking and listening to what Jeff and Mellen were saying as well is when you tend to rush through, there's an idea that you can pre-plan everything. Mm-hmm. And the lack of teaching at the lower levels comes through when you get on a higher level, even the 2, to be honest. From the 2, 3, 4, anything that you can construct a lesson yourself that you're not just following like a building block plan, whereas level 1 is kind of almost given to you, you repeat it and show that you can present. With anything moving up from there, there's this tendency for people to pre-plan a lesson.
Yeah.
And then what they do is they either word vomit at you for the first 20 minutes, but because it's all pre-planned, it just runs out of steam. Mm-hmm. Or if the pre-planning idea doesn't actually allow you to adapt to where the lesson's going. You know, having some good ideas in your head is one thing. Being comfortable and confident enough to say, well, I was aiming to go left, but it's kind of making me track straight. That's the way the lesson's going here, and having the confidence and ability to allow it to change tack, allow your plan to change because the environment and the lesson itself has moved that way. That shows definitely a higher understanding of what we're trying to get over in those exams.
I spend a lot of time on level 1 courses training new instructors, trying to get the idea across that teaching a lesson is just a series of decisions, right? So you start by making one decision and then you react to the outcome of that decision, and you either go left or right or keep it straight, right? But if you decide make all the decisions ahead of time, it rarely works out that well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this, you could say this about teaching anything, right? You have to see what the response is before you can make the next decision. So make a decision, take one step, and then decide whether it's working or not, and if you need to revise that decision. But that's part of the art of it, is that it's just a series of judgment calls all the way through until the lesson's done, basically.
So I like that. I'm gonna come in with my plan, and I'm gonna go left, 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 and left. And the downside to that is I end up where I bloody started from.
But then you brought it full circle all the way back to what your original point was.
But so many things can change, can't they? Whilst you're out there, so being able to adapt is super important, and on the fly, isn't it? The lesson could still have the same outcome, but how you teach it can change all the way through, can't it? What you focus on, depending on what you're seeing and how the terrain's changing. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you guys have any examples of people you've on level 2 kind of teachers, anyone who's shined out in terms of specific kind of lessons that they've done and on an actual example, or is there any that kind of sticking?
Oh, just Dan.
I did my level 3 teach. We were in a tunnel, weren't we, loading and deflecting, and on the top of the tunnel was I'm probably not allowed to say it, was I?
As long as you don't swear.
That was my feedback. But it's making it fun, isn't it? And I think that's a really important thing. This is fun. We've got to make sure that people are learning, but whilst having a good time. Most of the lessons you're teaching, people are on holiday, and they don't want to be told that they're bad at something either. They want to progress and have a laugh with you. You know, they put their faith in you, and so you've got to give that back. Learning without learning, it almost is, isn't it? You know, and then they're progressing and listening with you. They'll be your friend, but you're their mentor at the same time, and that's another skill. You know what I mean? It's an art as well, I feel. You know, and having a character and a personality, how you deliver that lesson, putting your own character and personality into it, as long as you're getting the what you're trying to teach them across, how you deliver that and padding it up with some of you and making it fun, like that's what it's all about for me when I teach.
And that's like salesmanship, managing dual relationships, like so many awesome life skills that, you know, aren't in the list of things that you're going to get out of an instructor program. But you're like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
The best lessons that I can think of over the years of training instructors have always been the ones that felt like real lessons, like real teaching. And that's the hard part. Like Jamie and Mellen and myself have been involved with kind of setting the course content and setting the direction of how CASI trains instructors. And it's hard to create a formula to give clarity to people in the process and then expect them to use that formula to create something that is organic.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but the best lessons on a level 1 through a level 4 exam that I've ever done are the ones that feel the most like real lessons and feel less like a formula. And it's a tricky thing to accomplish, but I can always think back. I mean, we just had a level 4 exam here in Quebec a couple weeks ago, and the successful lessons are the ones that feel like the teaching is real, and it's that decision-making process. And like Jamie said, it's not a pre-packaged canned version of a lesson, which is also hard on an exam because you're teaching your peers or you're kind of mock teaching your peers. But so it's I always say it's a bit of an artificial situation, but if you can make it feel more authentic, then that really makes those lessons stand out.
I mean, I can see you guys kind of, especially in CASI, you really hammer at the idea of this is a rough guide, this is a rough concept. You can keep to these bullet points, but like you don't need to be just reading out the manual and just having it as your own kind of concept.
And I think we've tried over the years within CASI to really hammer that message home, is that we've always tried to give tools, and hopefully instructors or prospective instructors can select and use the tool that suits the situation the best, as opposed to giving a blueprint or a recipe and always following that recipe.
Yeah.
So that's always been our approach, I think.
If you think about like the lessons that you learn teaching beginners, is that you have a pretty good beginner plan that starts going, and you start to run that plan until you get to real teaching, and those decisions need to be made. And then you start to adapt, and that's when real teaching happens.
Right.
And I think at higher levels, the same idea. It's okay to come in with an idea and a plan and a bit of a framework, and you run that plan until you get to real teaching. And that's when the lesson is successful. If you never make it to real teaching, just like with the beginner lesson, like nothing's actually going to happen. If you've got too much plan, you've got it all planned out, real teaching never happens. But if you also come in without any preparation, you don't have the direction where you can start to guide those decisions. So it's those lessons on the bunny slope where you're like, all right, quick grad, step 1. Oh, wait, hold on.
And that's where we've talked a lot over the years with kind of guiding the content of the level 1, the way that we train a new instructor. I think CASI as an organization has a responsibility to provide a 15-year-old kid or 16-year-old kid with a recipe, right? So at the very least, you get thrown on the beginner hill on your first day of teaching, you can pull that recipe card out of your pocket and teach a moderately good lesson. But over time, if you're working in the kitchen and you're constantly following a recipe, over time you're going to start to substitute ingredients and just think, what happens if I swap this for that? Chocolate milk for regular milk.
Moving from that as well, to use that analogy as well, Jeff, if you look at it, so here is the recipe. Well, some people might not like blue cheese dressing.
Right.
Mushrooms.
Or mushrooms. They are a horrible fungus, by the way. So what you do is you've got the ability in the kitchen, okay, so I'm going to omit this from the recipe because that's what the client needs. That's what the client wants. And I think that kind of experience is crucial as well. It's understanding what you need to use when you need to use it for the person in front of you.
Yeah, and that comes with experience. That's a tough skill to teach to a new instructor or a younger person who maybe doesn't have experience teaching anything yet.
Yeah.
So you got to start somewhere, and I think having that guide in your pocket to follow,
Awesome.
and you know, after every 10 or 15 hours of teaching beginners, then you pick up new little pieces of experience.
I'm curious actually, like what other kind of advice would you give to people just getting into the system in terms of who either want to become instructors or just about kind of starting their level one, like someone who wants to go a bit further or wanting to go to a ski school or anything?
It's, I guess this is what I do, isn't it? My time to shine, guys. No, so like so coming into this industry, what we do is we give people, they come here for 3 months with us. These guys train them, but we give them an experience as well. Like, it's not just about becoming an instructor, you know, it's everything that goes alongside that. This mountain lifestyle is incredible. It's not just about on the slope, it's everything that happens off it as well. You know, we're all of us here, we're a big family, we're a network, and like, and just in this resort, as we said earlier, once you've come into this and you the instructors travel together the world as well, you know, like you extend the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere. A lot of people, all the summertime, you know, they go down to work on the lakes together. You know, you have it's a really fun lifestyle. But anyway, I digress. But coming into it, it's showing that lifestyle when you come to do a course like what we provide. It's terrible English. Like we provide is we're giving the life skills as well, like the life skills that you're giving them in the teaching and the training, we're giving them also off the slopes those life skills of how to look after themselves, how to adapt and become, you know, adults as well. But we have adults that come on this who learn things. You know, it opens your eyes to there's a big world out there that isn't you don't have to have a 9-to-5 job and hate getting up on a Monday morning to go to the office for the boss who's an arsehole. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mate, this is a PG podcast.
It's all right, I clicked the
That's
18 plus.
real. That's real burnout, right?
Yeah.
You can show people what being a little bit tired, but not experiencing true burnout.
Yeah, or
Get
just
people away from that.
or hatred of their lives, you know, and that bitterness and resentment of like, I wish I'd done something else. When you know, having the courage also to come on something like this, because it's not an easy decision to make. You know, you're sort of taught when you're small, like, you know, that you have to have a career and a wife and 2 kids and you know, a house, but like the world is changing. Like we people are much more adaptable now, and we've really seen that in the last 2 years in how people are moving out of the cities and they're coming, you know, a lot of people are moving up to here because they can work from home and still go snowboarding every day, you know, and stuff like that. I think this opens your eyes definitely to a big wide world, and being part of it is amazing.
Has kind of CASI seen that shift with the idea of you know, people doing this more because they don't like the 9-to-5 jobs, or in terms of that there's that change in methodology in terms of the whole kind of worldwide international kind of
We did a lot of online presentations, hey?
Yeah.
Jeff spent a long time putting a ton of information together.
And we've seen, I mean, with the kind of the shift over I would say the last decade or so with programs like Nothing But Snow and Skill Gap and stuff like that, there has been definitely a shift in kind of the people coming and taking our courses, where there was people looking at this as maybe an alternative way of doing something else. But you know, like Ann said too, it's not an easy road as well, and it's you know, it's a great lifestyle, and none of us would be sitting here if it wasn't something that we didn't love to do. But at the same time, there's many times along the way where you're like, it might be easier just to go get a 9-to-5 office job, right? And it's not a lucrative career, that's for sure, and
No.
but it pays off in other ways, for sure. But we've definitely seen more and more people taking CASI programs anyway, with that being a goal. And now, more recently, in the last couple of years, we've seen even a different shift where there's people taking CASI programs just out of personal kind of growth, personal information.
Yeah.
You know, maybe even with no plan to get a job as an instructor, but just recognizing that they want to know a little bit more about the technique of snowboarding or kind of the theory behind it or the behind the scenes type stuff. So
And that's exactly what we see on our course.
Yeah,
Half of them are just coming here for a life experience, and that's why it's called a gap program. It's the gap in your life, and you come and do this thing, and if you don't want to instruct at the end of it, you still learn a lot about yourself, and you've got better at snowboarding.
Absolutely.
So that's a great thing to be part of. If you don't get into the industry, it doesn't matter. Like you've had a great time,
I think that's
and you've done it, and you've got it out of your system, if you like.
But you've had a great time. Life-changing experience happen on gap programs.
For
Whether
sure.
or not it becomes the career that you do for a little bit, whether or not it becomes the career you do forever, or not at all.
We get lots come here for 2 years, don't we?
Yeah.
They come and do a couple of seasons and then move on. But they've had that experience.
Yeah.
And that's great.
I think
It's so enriching.
big thing, advice-wise, for somebody starting, would be understand the skill set you have already, because that's so applicable. Whether you are comfortable talking to people, whether you're organised, etc., etc. Understand that. Go in and understand why you snowboard. Okay, what does it give you? When you understand that, it's so easy to pass passion on. And then, enjoy noodles for a bit, especially if you're doing it as a job. But understand how, that's true. Understand how you can progress, and understand that you might need. I know I had a job where I'd go back to the UK and I would just work 2 40-hour jobs. Okay, why? Because I like snowboarding. The work isn't guaranteed, especially as you're starting out. So have the ability to know this and subsidize yourself by doing something slightly different to allow you to develop. When you start to develop, I got some friends that top selling ski instructors, and I think they'll even admit themselves that they just about got the level 2. But the experience, they're an actor in the UK, and the experience he delivers to the clients when he's fully booked, he makes more money than pretty much everyone I know, because people pay to be with him. So again, he understands his skill set coming into it, and he just loves the environment he's in. So, you can come at it from a lot of angles. The be all and end all is be sensible, figure out what you can and can't do, and enjoy it. That's it really in a nutshell. Otherwise, if we weren't enjoying it, none of us would be here.
Yeah, and don't rush it either. I think that's the other. That would be my advice too. Is don't rush the process and rush the process of gaining those skills. And there seems to be a real push to get to that point of being a gap trainer or getting a job on a gap trainer. And I've always tried to convey to people that you don't want to be in that role and not have the skills to back it up. That's a really awkward position to be in. And you don't want to be kind of rushed through that system, right? And you don't want to be there. You want to be there and be confident in your abilities.
Yeah,
I think that's a big thing. So.
Wouldn't last long with us if you're no good.
And I was gonna say too, anything you do that looks shiny and exciting, you do it often enough, and it's just the same old.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, being a gap trainer or an evaluator is no more fun than hanging out on the beginner slope and teaching people. All of it, anything you do becomes a little bit repetitive.
Sure.
You've got to love what you're doing.
That's right. Yeah.
That's teaching no matter what level or what human you're teaching.
Totally.
If you don't like teaching beginners, it's not the job for you. But you
Yeah.
can take some cool skill sets away from it.
For sure,
Right, yeah.
And kind of, moving on to the last couple of bits, realistically, as I don't want to kind of make you overdo this episode. I've kind of asked a couple of you guys what makes a great snowboard instructor. I've not asked Jamie yet. So, Jamie.
No pressure.
Yeah, no. In your opinion, what makes a great snowboard instructor?
Didn't I say this the other night when we were having drinks?
Possibly. I can't remember.
Ego.
Are you waiting for me to say that?
Say anything, mate. Not putting words in your mouth.
What makes a great snowboard instructor? Passion.
Yeah.
First and foremost, you've got to love what you do. Okay? The passion to put your boots on and go out and ride, and your passion to be able to, again, I keep saying it, pass it on Having empathy helps.
Yeah.
It gets, I think sometimes we get put in a bracket of, well, when you're evaluating, you don't empathize with somebody that's there, but it's not true. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Empathy with a beginner, empathy with people training, and really just understanding what client needs. I think, I don't want to say it as being like a salesman, because you kind of are. Every little tactic that you're asking someone to do, every tip you're trying to give, you are selling it.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't mean that in, I'm not going to belittle any other industry, but some salesmen have bad reps. You're selling it in the terms of you want them to buy into your ideas because you're going to help them. Okay, that's the take home message from it. So, yeah, I think there's so many different things that can make a good snowboard instructor, but if you don't have passion, what's the point?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no.
That's why I still do it.
Yeah. Definitely. Any closing remarks on your end, guys?
Well, no, I think, that's exactly right. We do this because we love it. We want other people to feel the feelings that we feel every day when we get up at night. Yeah, and that makes you a great instructor as well. Having that passion to give your love for this to somebody else it's brilliant. And when they get it, like that's what makes you a good instructor. When you get it across, whichever techniques you've had to use out of the skill sets that you've learned becoming an instructor, and then you see that click, and it happens, and you see them do it. It's amazing. It's so rewarding. I think that's an amazing thing as well. You give, but you get back at the same time, and I think that's brilliant.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thanks for that, guys, and cheers to snowboarding.
Cheers,
guys.
Our top midday water.
Yeah.